Evelyn Harper stared at the polished oak floor of the living room, her hands folded neatly in her lap, as Daniel Harper's voice trembled slightly across the room. "Mom, he's gone. Everything's over." Victoria Collins stood behind him, her smile too polished, too practiced, the kind that never reached her eyes. Evelyn didn't move, didn't speak. She simply nodded, her mind racing silently as she measured every glance, every hesitation, every subtle shift in their expressions. The room smelled faintly of the rain outside, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and lingering coffee. Evelyn's gaze fell upon the family portraits lining the mantel, each frame a frozen memory of laughter and celebration, now juxtaposed against the cold reality of loss and the invisible tension that filled the space. "I suppose this is all happening sooner than expected," she finally said, her voice soft, calm, almost imperceptible, but heavy with intent. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Victoria, who subtly adjusted the sleeve of her cream-colored blouse, her eyes darting to the closed door as if expecting someone else to enter, someone who would give them permission to continue their conversation. Evelyn traced the outline of her wedding portrait with her mind, recalling the day she had promised a lifetime of care and partnership, the day that had seemed so distant, yet now so vividly close. She remembered the piles of paperwork, the discussions of trusts and wills, the quiet nights spent balancing her own desires with the needs of her family, all the while unaware of the calculating eyes that now observed her every move. The ticking of the antique clock on the wall became louder, each second a reminder of the patience she had cultivated over decades, patience that would now serve her in ways Daniel and Victoria could not anticipate. She allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile to touch her lips, not of joy, not of defeat, but of understanding that she held the power and restraint, that every word she withheld was a tool, a measure of her own timing. Victoria cleared her throat lightly, attempting to maintain the facade of composure. Yet Evelyn noted the subtle tremor in her fingers, the way her foot tapped against the floor in a rhythm betraying impatience and concern. Evelyn's thoughts drifted to the documents hidden in the study, carefully organized, each envelope, each signature, each note a quiet testament to her foresight, her preparation. She imagined the moment when the truth, long held back, would ripple through this room, the realization dawning on them that the silence they had underestimated was not weakness but strategy. She rose slowly, deliberately, every movement measured, and for the first time in hours, allowed her eyes to meet Daniel's directly, unwavering, steady, conveying a depth of resolve that words could never capture. The faint creak of the floorboards under her feet echoed softly, blending with the muted hum of the city outside, as she moved toward the study. The weight of the inheritance, the unspoken truths, the long years of trust and care, all converging in this single moment where patience and power intersected. Evelyn's mind was clear, her purpose precise, and as the door clicked shut behind her, leaving Daniel and Victoria in a silence that seemed almost tangible, she allowed herself a brief, internal acknowledgement of the game she was about to play, a game in which she had already anticipated every move, every hesitation, every pretense, and where the final revelation would land not with anger or revenge, but with the quiet authority of inevitability. The study was quiet, the soft hum of the air conditioning blending with the faint tapping of rain against the window panes. Evelyn Harper sat at the large mahogany desk, her hands resting on the smooth surface as she reviewed the documents she had meticulously organized over the past weeks. Each envelope contained detailed records, signatures, and correspondences, each one a silent witness to her foresight and preparation. She allowed herself a brief moment to breathe, letting the tension of the earlier confrontation settle into a simmering focus, her mind sharpening with clarity rather than frustration. Outside, the late afternoon sun filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor, and Evelyn noted the precise angles where light met the edges of the room, observing how it played upon the framed photographs and the polished surfaces, each detail grounding her in the reality she had long maintained. She recalled the conversations she had overheard, the subtle exchanges between Daniel and Victoria, the way Victoria had attempted to guide him with gentle suggestions that masked her intentions. Evelyn traced each step in her memory, noting the patterns, the repeated behaviors, the small discrepancies that had accumulated into a clear picture of manipulation. She opened the first envelope, carefully sliding out the papers, examining each with a steady hand, making mental notes of dates, amounts, and phrasing, committing the information to memory as if rehearsing for a performance that only she knew the script to. Her thoughts wandered briefly to the estate, the property, and the investments that had been her husband's and now rested in a delicate balance, subject to the whims and ambitions of those around her. She imagined the reactions, the subtle shifts in posture, the flickers of surprise or discomfort when the truth she held would finally come to light, and allowed a faint smile to cross her face, not one of triumph, but of quiet satisfaction at her patience. The clock ticked steadily, each second a reminder of the careful timing that governed the unfolding of events, and Evelyn contemplated her next steps with measured precision. She drafted mental outlines, scenarios in which Daniel might respond differently, contingencies for Victoria's potential moves, and the nuances of conversation she could use to guide outcomes without raising alarm. Her focus was absolute, every thought and motion deliberate, a choreography of subtle influence and silent assertion. She rose to fetch a cup of tea, pouring the steaming liquid into her favorite china cup, the aroma grounding her further in the tangible world even as her mind remained absorbed in strategy. As she sat back down, she glanced once more at the photographs of her family, noting the expressions frozen in time, the laughter that once filled these rooms, now replaced by a charged stillness that spoke volumes in its quietness. Each element of the house, from the carefully arranged furniture to the smallest decorative item, was a component in the environment she had nurtured, a testament to her presence and foresight, and she appreciated the irony that the very space Victoria sought to control was one that had been shaped by Evelyn's care and intention. Minutes passed in this careful study, each moment reinforcing her understanding that knowledge and patience were as powerful as any overt action, that observation could reveal motives more clearly than confrontation. Evelyn allowed herself to stretch slightly, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease, the rhythm of her breathing aligning with the silent anticipation of the moments ahead, and she reflected on the nature of power and influence, the quiet authority that came not from force, but from careful preparation and insight. The room remained still, yet charged with potential, the envelopes on the desk representing not just documents, but a record of prudence, vigilance, and unwavering clarity. Evelyn knew that the day would come when she would step from observation into action, when the culmination of her planning and quiet watchfulness would converge, and the truths hidden in these papers would unfold naturally, reshaping the dynamics around her. For now, she remained seated, a calm presence in a room that held both memory and strategy, her mind attuned to every detail, every nuance, and every subtle indication that her family might be revealing more than they intended, while she continued to prepare silently, deliberately, and with an unwavering sense of control. The late afternoon light had shifted, casting a warm amber glow across the study as Evelyn Harper continued her quiet examination of the documents laid out before her. Each page revealed a fragment of intentions and decisions made behind the scenes, each signature and date a silent clue to the unfolding strategy of Victoria Collins. Evelyn observed the subtle nuances, the careful phrasing, the allocations that hinted at misdirection, and she cataloged every detail in her mind with precision. The faint ticking of the antique clock marked the passage of time, each beat a reminder of patience and careful planning, a rhythm she had honed over decades. Evelyn's attention shifted to the family photographs adorning the shelves, faces frozen in past celebrations, birthdays, and holidays, each moment a memory that Victoria had sought to manipulate or erase through her carefully curated narrative. She sipped the warm tea she had poured moments before, the aroma grounding her even as her thoughts raced through scenarios of how each revelation could be presented to achieve maximum clarity and impact without unnecessary confrontation. Evelyn recalled the subtle interactions she had witnessed between Daniel and Victoria in the days leading up to this moment. The way Daniel's eyes lingered on certain letters, the hesitation in his tone, and the quick glances that Victoria cast to anticipate his reactions. These were not accidents. They were the faint outlines of a plan she had now fully recognized. Evelyn organized her notes, arranging the documents in chronological order, matching her observations with the written records, cross-referencing transactions, correspondence, and schedules. She allowed herself a moment of reflection, acknowledging the skill it had taken for Victoria to weave her strategy while underestimating the awareness and foresight Evelyn had cultivated over the years. The rain outside had intensified slightly, the soft patter against the window a steady backdrop to her contemplation, and Evelyn noted the way shadows shifted across the room, a visual representation of the complex dynamics at play. She stood and moved to the window, her gaze sweeping the backyard where the garden remained immaculately maintained, a testament to decades of care and attention, a space that had always symbolized her grounding presence in the home. Every detail mattered, from the placement of furniture to the selection of papers on the desk, and Evelyn considered how each element could be subtly referenced, highlighted, or utilized in the unfolding dialogue that would reveal the truth. She reviewed mental notes on phrasing and timing, considering how to guide Daniel toward comprehension without forcing resistance, how to present the evidence in a manner that revealed patterns rather than isolated instances. Evelyn's mind worked in quiet orchestration, imagining each expression, each pause, each acknowledgement, and she measured the emotional cadence required to maintain calm authority while allowing the weight of the facts to speak for themselves. She returned to the desk, rearranging a few envelopes to prioritize the documents that would be most illuminating, the ones that captured both intent and effect in the hands of Victoria and her influence over Daniel. The room remained still, save for the soft rustle of paper and the steady ticking, a space charged with anticipation and meticulous strategy. Evelyn breathed deeply, centering herself in the stillness, and recognized the quiet power that came not from confrontation but from awareness, patience, and deliberate preparation. She visualized the moment when each carefully compiled piece of information would converge into a coherent revelation, understanding that the impact would not derive from loud accusations or overt displays, but from the clarity of truth presented with composure, allowing the situation to unfold with inevitability and precision. Every observation, every document, every subtle insight into behavior was part of the architecture she had built in silence, and Evelyn knew that the forthcoming interactions would not be dictated by force, but by the unassailable logic and measured timing she had cultivated. The anticipation was steady, deliberate, and Evelyn welcomed it, for she knew the value of control in both observation and execution, and she remained poised. Her presence commanding without assertion, her intellect guiding the sequence of disclosures that would reveal intentions, clarify misunderstandings, and establish the order she had patiently constructed. The sunlight had begun to fade, casting a soft golden hue over the study as Evelyn Harper continued her meticulous review of the documents. Each page represented a layer of understanding, a map of intentions and actions that Victoria Collins had carefully concealed beneath her composed exterior. Evelyn traced the dates and annotations, noting subtle patterns and repetitions that revealed more than words alone could convey. The faint hum of the city outside blended with the rhythmic ticking of the clock, creating a steady backdrop for her concentrated thoughts. She leaned back slightly, considering the small gestures she had observed earlier, the brief hesitation in Daniel Harper's voice when Victoria mentioned certain topics, the slight shift of her hand as she glanced toward Evelyn, the measured pauses that spoke volumes in their silence. Every interaction, every unspoken cue had been absorbed and cataloged, forming a mental outline of influence and control that Victoria had tried to assert. Evelyn imagined how each revelation would unfold, the expressions of surprise and confusion that would ripple across the room as the carefully compiled facts came to light. She organized the documents into chronological sequences, aligning the evidence with the behavioral patterns she had recorded in her mind. There was a quiet satisfaction in this methodical preparation, a sense of calm authority that contrasted sharply with the subtle tension she had sensed moments earlier. The room was orderly, every object in its place, reflecting a life of discipline and attentiveness that had always been her foundation. She took a slow breath, the warm scent of the tea still lingering in the air, and allowed herself a brief moment to envision the sequence of conversations, the pacing of disclosures, the strategic presentation of information that would guide Daniel toward understanding without confrontation. Evelyn considered the way light fell across the desk, illuminating the edges of papers and highlighting signatures, as if subtly accentuating the path to clarity and truth. Each detail mattered, from the slight creak of the floor beneath her feet to the arrangement of books and personal artifacts around the room, all elements that had been carefully maintained to reflect both her history and her intentions. She allowed a quiet smile to form, not from triumph, but from the deep reassurance of knowledge, awareness, and patience. Evelyn knew that timing was essential, that the impact of revelations was magnified by their precise unfolding, and she continued to mentally rehearse sequences of dialogue, the subtle cues that would guide comprehension and acknowledgement without the need for overt assertions. The study, with its polished surfaces and well-ordered contents, became a stage for quiet strategy, a space in which observation, patience, and deliberate planning coalesced into a form of soft power. Evelyn remained seated, her presence calm and unassuming, yet every aspect of her attention honed on the forthcoming moments, aware that the careful orchestration of information, the nuanced understanding of behavior, and the silent authority she embodied would collectively shape the outcome. The shadows lengthened as the evening progressed, and Evelyn allowed herself to feel the steady confidence that comes from preparation, knowing that every document, every observation, and every calculated pause would contribute to an eventual clarity, an inevitable understanding, and the controlled revelation of truths long held beneath the surface of polite conversation and measured appearances. The room had grown quieter, the evening settling into a soft hush as Evelyn Harper organized the final stack of documents on the desk. Each paper, each envelope, each notation represented a piece of the intricate puzzle she had been constructing in her mind, a carefully curated collection of facts, observations, and evidence. She had spent countless hours reviewing bank statements, property agreements, and correspondence, aligning every detail with the behaviors and decisions she had witnessed from Victoria Collins over the previous weeks. The soft glow of the desk lamp illuminated the pages, highlighting the signatures, dates, and small annotations that together formed a narrative far clearer than any single conversation could convey. Evelyn sipped her tea slowly, letting the warmth settle her thoughts, grounding her focus even as her mind traced the subtle threads of influence that had guided Daniel Harper's decisions, often unconsciously directed by Victoria's carefully placed suggestions. She recalled the quiet moments, the fleeting expressions and half-smiles that had hinted at intentions, and she cataloged them mentally, recognizing how they connected to the financial choices and logistical arrangements Victoria had implemented with precision. The sound of the wind outside brushing against the window pane provided a rhythmic counterpoint to the ticking of the clock, a steady cadence against which Evelyn measured the unfolding of her observations and the timing of her planned responses. She leaned forward, rearranging the envelopes to place the most revealing documents within immediate reach, each selection deliberate, chosen to convey clarity and pattern without confrontation. Evelyn considered how she might guide Daniel toward understanding, how she might reveal inconsistencies without accusation, presenting the information in a sequence that would allow the truth to emerge naturally, leaving the impact on Victoria to develop through realization rather than dispute. Every detail of the study, from the polished surfaces to the careful arrangement of books and photographs, reflected her methodical attention, a visual representation of the control and foresight she had maintained. She allowed her thoughts to linger briefly on the past, on moments of trust and shared decisions, and recognized the subtle ways in which those experiences had shaped her perception, granting her insight into patterns of behavior and motive. Evelyn imagined the conversations that would follow, the pauses, the inflections, and the gentle yet firm guidance that would lead to acknowledgement without resistance, and she felt a steady satisfaction in knowing that preparation and patience would dictate the outcome. Her hands rested lightly on the desk, moving occasionally to adjust the arrangement of papers, a small act that reinforced her command of the environment. The teacup beside her steamed softly, the scent mingling with the quiet of the room, anchoring her awareness as she envisioned the strategic unfolding of events. Each observation she had noted, each behavioral pattern, and each documented action contributed to a coherent sequence that she had anticipated, ensuring that when the moment arrived, the revelation would carry the weight of clarity, evidence, and inevitability. Evelyn drew in a deep breath. The calmness of the room mirrored in her posture, and allowed herself to feel the quiet authority that comes from knowledge, patience, and careful attention, knowing that every calculated detail, every subtle insight, and every measured pause would converge to illuminate the truth she had so carefully prepared to reveal, all while maintaining a composed presence that demanded recognition through observation alone. The evening deepened outside, casting a gentle shadow across the study where Evelyn Harper sat with the documents carefully spread before her. Each envelope and page represented layers of clarity, intentions, and actions she had quietly observed, now ready to be assembled into a coherent understanding of events. She leaned back in the leather chair, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of a paper as her mind rehearsed the sequence in which she would guide the unfolding awareness. Every movement she had recorded, every choice Daniel had made under subtle influence, and every meticulous step Victoria had taken were now aligned in a mental map that allowed Evelyn to anticipate reactions without haste or hesitation. The muted light from the desk lamp illuminated the surface of the papers, revealing signatures, notes, and dates that were more than just text. They were markers of timing, of decision-making, of intentions that had long been hidden behind polite conversation and measured appearances. Evelyn sipped from her tea, feeling the warmth steady her focus. As she reflected on the patterns that had emerged, small inconsistencies now clearly revealing a broader strategy that Victoria had attempted to orchestrate with precision. She imagined how the careful presentation of this information could guide Daniel toward comprehension, allowing recognition of the truth without accusation, leaving the impact to unfold naturally. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle outside, the soft tapping against the window blending with the quiet hum of the air conditioner, providing a steady background rhythm against which she measured each thought and plan. Evelyn organized the documents further, grouping those that highlighted influence, those that demonstrated intent, and those that corroborated observed behaviors, creating an intuitive path of revelation that flowed logically, calmly, and with undeniable clarity. Her gaze shifted to the photographs lining the mantel. Each frozen memory of laughter, family holidays, and moments of care, a reminder of her consistent presence, contrasted now with the subtle manipulations that had gone unnoticed by others. Evelyn allowed herself to imagine the expressions she would witness, the realization dawning in measured stages as evidence was revealed, how comprehension would spread first to Daniel, then to Victoria, without a single raised voice, without a gesture of confrontation, allowing truth to speak through clarity and structured presentation alone. She adjusted the envelopes on the desk one final time, each arranged to optimize the sequence of recognition, the order in which facts, observations, and supporting documentation would be acknowledged, ensuring that understanding would arrive fully formed. Evelyn's posture remained poised, her breathing steady, as she contemplated the delicate balance of timing, perception, and patience that governed the coming moments. Every movement, every decision, every thought was deliberate, aligned with the knowledge that power often lies in the controlled reveal, in the quiet preparation, and in the unassuming presence that holds information and strategy without urgency. The study, bathed in soft lamplight, became a stage of anticipation, of potential clarity, where Evelyn's methodical foresight and quiet observation set the stage for understanding, acknowledgement, and resolution, all achieved without confrontation, through patience, preparation, and the silent authority she had maintained throughout the evening. The night had settled fully over the Harper residence, a quiet calm enveloping the rooms as Evelyn Harper arranged the last set of documents on her desk with careful precision. Each folder, envelope, and paper was placed deliberately, forming a sequence that she had reviewed repeatedly in her mind, ensuring that every detail, every observation, every note was aligned perfectly for the moment of revelation. The soft glow of the desk lamp cast gentle shadows across the polished surfaces, highlighting the meticulous order that Evelyn had maintained, a reflection of the clarity and control she carried within her. Outside, the faint hum of traffic and the distant wail of a siren were the only interruptions to the steady rhythm of her thoughts, the subtle soundtrack to a room filled with anticipation and latent understanding. Evelyn considered the patterns she had observed over the past days, the subtle cues in Daniel Harper's demeanor, the way his tone shifted slightly when certain topics were mentioned, the fleeting expressions that betrayed both recognition and uncertainty. Victoria Collins' composure remained polished, yet Evelyn could imagine the moments when hesitation would betray the careful mask of confidence, and she allowed herself a small, measured smile, not of triumph, but of quiet acknowledgement that her foresight was accurate. She traced the edges of the envelopes with her fingers, the paper cool beneath her touch, and envisioned the way the sequence of documents would unfold, how the patterns and consistencies would speak more clearly than any argument or accusation could. Evelyn recalled the preparation, the careful observation of behaviors, the documentation of transactions and interactions, each element woven into a coherent narrative that she held entirely within her control. She sipped the now lukewarm tea, letting the warmth settle her focus as she rehearsed the mental sequence of revelations, the subtle prompts and guidance that would allow comprehension to emerge naturally for Daniel, while the truths of Victoria's actions became undeniable without confrontation. The photographs on the mantel reflected faint light, images of past celebrations, smiles frozen in time, creating a stark contrast to the tension that now filled the house, a silent echo of the layers of awareness and preparation Evelyn had cultivated. Every document, every observation, every slight behavioral indicator was part of a structured path toward understanding, a sequence that would guide recognition and acknowledgement without the need for force or dramatic gesture. She adjusted the placement of a few envelopes, ensuring that the order reflected not only the chronological unfolding of events, but also the clarity and impact of the story they collectively told. The study remained a haven of quiet deliberation, each element reinforcing the meticulous planning that Evelyn had undertaken, each moment of silence a tool in itself, a means of controlling the pace and direction of awareness. She leaned back briefly, letting her eyes sweep across the room, the light, the photographs, the carefully placed objects, each one a subtle testament to her presence, her preparation, and her steady influence. Evelyn felt the confidence that comes from knowledge, patience, and deliberate strategy, a sense of calm authority that permeated the room, knowing that the culmination of her preparation would soon guide the understanding of those around her, revealing patterns, intentions, and truths with quiet precision, and that every detail she had observed, every action she had documented, and every pause she had calculated would converge to illuminate clarity and understanding, all without confrontation, all through the measured orchestration of observation, patience, and subtle guidance. The night had fully embraced the Harper residence, and Evelyn Harper remained seated at the polished desk, her gaze calm and deliberate as she reviewed the documents one final time. The soft lamplight illuminated the carefully arranged papers, highlighting the dates, signatures, and annotations that mapped out a story far beyond what casual observation could reveal. Evelyn traced the patterns she had discerned in Victoria Collins' behavior, the subtle suggestions, the carefully timed remarks, and the influence they had exerted over Daniel Harper's choices, now all clearly aligned in her mind with the evidence she held in her hands. Outside, the faint hum of the city and the occasional distant sound of a car passing were the only interruptions to the quiet rhythm of the evening, providing a gentle backdrop to the stillness that filled the study. She leaned forward, allowing her fingers to hover over the envelopes, considering the sequence in which the documents would be referenced and the order in which the truths would emerge naturally, guiding comprehension without confrontation. Evelyn's eyes moved across the framed photographs on the mantel, capturing moments of family gatherings, birthdays, and quiet celebrations, each image a reminder of her enduring presence, contrasted sharply with the subtle manipulations that Victoria had attempted to employ. Every detail, from the placement of the papers to the gentle aroma of tea lingering in the room, was a component of the environment she had cultivated to support observation, clarity, and strategic revelation. She thought of the potential responses, the the silent acknowledgement in Daniel's eyes as comprehension unfolded, the subtle shift in Victoria's expression as each connection became undeniable, and she felt the quiet satisfaction of preparation, the kind that does not boast but quietly asserts itself through patience and insight. Evelyn adjusted the positioning of the documents, ensuring that the flow of information would be coherent, each step leading logically to the next, reinforcing patterns and demonstrating intent with clarity. The soft ticking of the clock on the wall marked time in precise intervals, each tick echoing the deliberate pacing she had planned for the moment when the sequence would be observed, understood, and internalized. She sipped the tea slowly, letting the warmth steady her focus, each movement measured, each thought precise, knowing that the culmination of her preparation would allow truth to unfold with inevitability and without confrontation. Evelyn reflected on the subtle power of observation, the authority that comes from knowledge and patience, and how the environment, the sequence of documents, and the careful alignment of evidence would convey clarity more effectively than any direct assertion could. Her posture remained composed, her presence calm, yet fully aware of the weight carried in the organized papers before her, a tangible representation of foresight, diligence, and insight. She allowed herself a faint, internal acknowledgement of the quiet authority she held, the certainty that the patterns she had discerned, the behaviors she had documented, and the strategic timing of presentation would reveal the truth naturally, illuminate intentions, and guide comprehension, all while maintaining a serene, composed presence that spoke volumes without a single word being raised, ensuring that the full understanding of actions and motives would emerge fully, thoughtfully, and with undeniable clarity. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains of the Harper study, casting a gentle glow across the carefully arranged desk where Evelyn Harper sat, her eyes calm but alert as she reviewed the documents one last time. The evidence she had meticulously compiled, the financial statements, the correspondence, the subtle patterns of influence and decision-making, now formed a complete picture that left no detail unexamined. Evelyn traced the chronology in her mind, visualizing the sequence of events and the way each carefully observed behavior, each unspoken glance, and each minor action contributed to the broader understanding of Victoria Collins' intentions. She sipped the lukewarm tea beside her, savoring the quiet and the rhythm of her breathing, allowing each sip to ground her focus while she prepared mentally for the moment when comprehension would emerge naturally for Daniel Harper and for the realization to settle with Victoria. The soft hum of the city outside and the distant chirping of birds provided a calm counterpoint to the concentration in the room, and Evelyn felt a steady assurance in the environment she had shaped, every object and document contributing to the unfolding clarity. She imagined the subtle shifts in Daniel's expression as he followed the thread of information, the moments when recognition would dawn without need for insistence, and the precise pauses she had planned to allow the weight of understanding to settle in its own time. The photographs on the mantel caught the morning light, highlighting familiar smiles and moments of shared history, a quiet reminder of her presence and care contrasted with the manipulations she had observed and recorded. Evelyn arranged the documents in the sequence that would communicate patterns clearly and naturally, emphasizing continuity, intent, and consistency, each placement deliberate, each detail chosen to maximize comprehension without confrontation. She considered the reactions, not with anticipation of drama, but with measured foresight, visualizing the calm acknowledgement, the subtle realization, and the dawning clarity that would arise from presenting the information in a logical, composed manner. Every note, every annotation, every carefully observed behavior had been cataloged, cross-referenced, and aligned to create a coherent narrative that spoke for itself. Evelyn took a final breath, letting the quiet authority of preparation and observation settle over her, and she knew that the unfolding sequence of recognition would achieve its full impact precisely because it was guided by patience, clarity, and the deliberate orchestration of evidence and insight. The room remained still, every element in place, the documents poised to reveal the truth, the photographs silently testifying to her care and foresight, and Evelyn sat composed, confident in the inevitability of understanding and the natural unfolding of recognition, knowing that the culmination of her preparation would illuminate motives, clarify intentions, and establish the full picture without confrontation, with calm authority and unwavering precision. Evelyn Harper faces a delicate situation with her family. Observing the subtle actions of Victoria Collins and her son Daniel Harper as tensions rise following her husband's passing. Through careful observation and meticulous organization of documents, Evelyn navigates the intricate dynamics with poise, revealing hidden motives and patterns in a story full of suspense and emotional depth. This compelling narrative is a prime example of family stories, highlighting the complexities of trust, loyalty, and revelation within a household where intentions are masked and subtle manipulations occur. Viewers will be drawn into the nuanced interactions between the elderly mother and her ambitious daughter-in-law. Witnessing the patience and strategic insight Evelyn employs to uncover the truth and assert control, the tale offers multiple layers of intrigue, showcasing the power of calm observation and intelligence in resolving hidden conflicts, making it a must-watch among family stories. Enthusiasts, every scene is crafted to maintain tension and clarity, allowing audiences to experience the full impact of Evelyn's discoveries while understanding the broader implications for relationships and authority, solidifying this account as a notable example of modern family stories. Throughout the unfolding events, the emotional journey of Evelyn Harper against the backdrop of subtle maneuverings by Victoria Collins and Daniel Harper emphasizes the careful construction of family stories, where insight, timing, and revelation play critical roles in achieving resolution and understanding, cementing the story's appeal for viewers seeking compelling family stories. Character 1: Evelyn Harper, elderly white woman age 68, wearing elegant blouse and long skirt, standing facing the camera, calm, composed expression, senior hairstyle, gentle natural, lighting, realistic portrait, no cartoon, no CGI, no illustration, full body frontal view. Character 2: Victoria Collins, adult, white woman age 42, wearing tailored blouse and pencil skirt, standing facing the camera. Confident, composed expression, professional hairstyle, soft, natural lighting, realistic portrait, no cartoon. No cartoon, no CGI, no illustration, full body frontal view. Scene 1: Evelyn Harper and Victoria Collins face each other in a tense living room, their expressions sharp and calculated, both poised, as if anticipating a decisive move. The polished wooden floor and soft light from the tall windows casting shadows that heighten the confrontation, every gesture deliberate, every glance loaded with unspoken strategy, the atmosphere charged with silent intensity, their eyes locked in a battle of patience and insight with no words exchanged, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Scene 2: Evelyn Harper in her study, early morning sunlight streaming through curtains. She sits at a large mahogany desk, carefully reviewing envelopes and documents, her hands steady, tea steaming beside her, her expression calm and focused, the room filled with books and framed photographs reflecting a life of careful observation and quiet authority, soft shadows playing across the polished floor, the environment serene yet purposeful. Scene 3: Victoria Collins in her office, downtown, mid-morning light filters through tall glass windows. She stands near the desk adjusting papers on a sleek surface, her posture confident, her expression controlled and deliberate, the office minimal yet sophisticated, a laptop open with spreadsheets and notes surrounding it. She moves with practiced efficiency, indicating a meticulous attention to detail and a strategic mind. Scene 4: Evelyn Harper and Victoria Collins together in the study. Now a third figure representing potential interference looms subtly in the background. All three characters interact with tension, Victoria's composed facade showing slight cracks, Evelyn observing every cue with calm authority, the warm lamplight highlighting faces and documents, the room arranged to emphasize hierarchy and awareness, every movement deliberate, every glance charged with implication. Scene 5: Evelyn Harper walking through a quiet hallway of the Harper residence, the sunlight catching the polished floor. She pauses by a family photograph, her expression thoughtful and reflective, her posture relaxed, yet alert, the space silent except for distant city sounds outside the windows, a sense of anticipation lingering in the air as she considers the upcoming interactions, her hands lightly touching the frame conveying contemplation and subtle emotional depth. Scene 6. Evelyn Harper and Victoria Collins. In the final scene of the study, Evelyn presents the organized documents with composure. Daniel Harper, observing realization, dawning, the warm morning light filtering in their faces, conveying clarity, understanding, and resolution. Evelyn's expression calm, confident. The documents serving as a tangible representation of insight and preparation. Victoria's posture now showing acknowledgement of the situation. The room quiet, yet charged with the fulfillment of strategy and the culmination of patient observation, the atmosphere conveying the completion of a carefully orchestrated sequence of recognition and revelation.